Good.
Okay, so the time is 7:01 p.m. on Wednesday, April 20th, 2022, and I would like to call this Anti-Black Racism and Anti-Racism Task Force meeting to order. And today we're going to start with a land acknowledgement. So we would just like to start by acknowledging that the land on which we live and work is the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe and the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat peoples, whose presence here continues to this day. And Aurora is part of the treaty lands of the Mississaugas of the Credit and the Williams Treaties First Nations. We acknowledge and thank them for sharing this land with us. A shared understanding of how the rich cultural heritage that has existed for centuries and of how our collective past brought us to where we are today will help us walk together into a better future. So may I please have a motion to approve the agenda as circulated by Legislative Services? Moved by May, seconded by Jenny. Any questions or comments on the agenda? May?
I do have a few, I guess, new items that I'd like to share this evening if we have a few minutes.
Okay, would you like to let us know what those items are?
Certainly, it's in regard, there's a few items. Mark and I had a meeting with Shelley Ware, the recreation supervisor for the town, the special event supervisor. And we had that because Councillor Kim has some funding that for the task force that was given to the task force. So we just wanted to collaborate with Shelley and see what was going on as far as Canada Day goes and the Multicultural Day that will be held in the fall, and where can we help out as a task force. So Shelley had some great ideas for us. One was Canada Day parade. We could do a float and suggested that maybe we have t-shirts made and we can wear them. So that was one item to put forward to the task force and see if everybody's willing to help out and maybe be there. I think it'll be a fun event. I think this year, Canada Day is July 1st. It's a Friday. So that would be great for us to get out there and get known. The other one was our participation in, and this was also a suggestion from Councillor Kim, that we participate in the Cultural Day, which is held in the fall. Am I correct? I think it's usually September, October? September, I think. So what we would do as a task force basically is they usually serve a dish from all cultures around the world. And Shelley suggested that we actually this year can pick what the dish is. So it's usually rice, a potato, corn. And I think rice, even though they've done rice, she suggests rice would be maybe a good one. And I agree with her to do again, because everybody eats rice, whether you're from Greece, whether you're from India, so we could have that. So what ends up happening is we put the order in for the food. We have the funding for that, so we can do that. We'll put the order in for food. And then the restaurants, so we're supporting the restaurants in your area, they drop off the food, and then we are serving. We'll have a booth. We'll be wearing our same t-shirts that we have. And as a task force, we'll be serving. And especially with COVID rules, it would be better that we serve the rice in some containers. So that was another suggestion. And the big one really was while we were meeting with Shelley, where something popped up into my head, and Mark and I had discussed this. Phil Rose was there, Noor, and we've worked with Phil, and Phil's just wonderful to work with. I don't know if you know this, Noor, but our mural down on Yonge and Wellington is no longer happening. I don't know if you knew that. That was the owner of the building changed his mind. So that's not happening. So this funding that we have, this grant that we have, I thought what would be great to do is I was at a forum at the Niagara Call at the Niagara at Town Park at the, what is it called?
Armory?
The Armory. And it was a nice art forum that I was invited to. I think you all were invited to, and I attended. It was fantastic. Looking at going through and spending the day with all the artists and looking and listening to Phil and a lot of other folks out there was really good. So one of the things that I thought of that I would think that instead of the going towards the mural and some of the funding, we had discussed with Phil if we could do a structure instead, sort of a unity structure. And it would be, we'd at some point decide where we would put it in town. Anybody been down to the distillery and see the big peace sign? So something like that, or the heart where you can come, would say some sort of a unity, some sort of anything to do with diversity or unity. We would work with an artist, have something put up, maybe put it on one of the trail walkways, possibility of the new town square, something anywhere in town. But what needs to happen is we need to all agree on this as a task force. And if so, we have to put it forward towards council, and council then has to approve this. So that's the biggie. And I think it's quite a neat idea, quite a great idea, because people then can go to that item and say, hey, where's the peace sign? And hashtag Aurora, hashtag diversity, so forth. And I'm not sure if does anybody have any thoughts on that?
So if I'm not mistaken, Mike, I think that we have to add that to the bottom of the agenda if everybody agrees to add those as discussion points.
Yes,
right, Mike?
Through you, Madam Chair, that is correct. I would suggest the last one, though. We should have Phil present, I would think. I'm not aware of anything like that. I don't think Tasha is. So I think it's just tough to discuss and make plans with something that without the correct staff member present. So maybe I would say Phil could come to the next meeting, next month's meeting, but I don't know if it would do any good to discuss something that we're just not sure about yet. Or I mean, at least I have no knowledge of.
Okay.
May?
Yeah, sorry, Mike. I should have actually prepared for this. It's insane, and I'm leaving the country next week for a little bit. So my only concern is I don't know how we would go about this discussion because I think this has to get to council ASAP. I will talk to Councillor Kim again. I think he was going to have a chat with the mayor and discuss this whole idea. He's also working. He's got a new job, so he's working quite a bit as well. I think it's because of the summer break. I think it has to go to council sooner rather than later. So maybe what I can do, Mike, if this is okay, maybe I could have a talk with Councillor Kim again tomorrow, and maybe he can have a discussion with you and Phil and see how we go about this, if we can do this by email.
Through you, Madam Chair, I think that would be for the best. And I'll send an email to Phil tonight or tomorrow morning and tell him just to watch the start of the meeting, so he is fully aware what's been said, and then he'll start from a place of understanding where the task force is coming from. Okay.
And Phil is aware of what's going on, so he, I should have invited him to this meeting as well. My apologies. And that's a wrap up for all of that.
Okay. Were there any other questions or comments on the agenda? Okay. Is everyone in favor of adding the item of discussing the, I guess, Canada Day Parade and Multicultural Festival to the agenda for today? So I'll call the vote. Are all in favor? If you could raise your hand if you're in favor. Any opposed?
I'm not opposed. I'm just wondering if we should have the discussion when Adeline and Councillor Kim might be, available, even if it's not on one of these meetings. We could arrange a time. I'm just a thought.
May?
Madam Chair, Jenny, Councillor Kim is aware of all of these points. I've had long discussions with him on this, and he wanted me to put it forward to everyone today. Only because we have to let Shelley know what we are doing if we are going to go forward with Canada Day. The other thing that I left out is Mark, Shelley asked Mark if he could look into getting a steel band, and I think Shelley has funding for us to put in sort of a steel band or a drum band of some sorts with our float.
Shivangi?
Through you, Madam Chair, are we expecting to make decisions on this? If that is the case, then I agree with Jenny. We should have the other members present. But if it's just a discussion and a point for awareness, then that would make sense that we continue on that topic.
Okay, I mean, I think making a decision on it is up to us. So if we're more comfortable just having a chat about it and holding on any decisions until we're able to involve the rest of the team, then I propose that that's what we kind of focus on for today's meeting. Mark?
I would like to also ask staff, what is the policy? I mean, if members are not available for meetings and we need to take a vote, if we do have a quorum, is it typical to move forward with a vote?
Through you, Madam Chair, it is typical to move forward with a vote. I wouldn't, I don't think there's any decisions, you'd be making any decisions. I think it would just be a discussion tonight. So I don't think it's the, the worst thing to discuss amongst you without other members being here. But yes, with quorum, you can certainly move forward with any of the task force business.
Okay, so all in favor of discussing the festival item today? And I mean, I guess if the vote comes up, it can come up, but I can't control that per se, but maybe we can withhold decisions if possible. May, are you voting or you have a question?
No, Madam Chair, I just wanted to maybe have sort of feedback from Jenny or from Shivangi on their thoughts of what they basically feel. Would they be keen on helping out or be interested in the Canada Day Parade and as well as the multicultural event? I just would like to have some input from someone.
Okay, I think if that's the focus of our discussion, then we can add that to the agenda if everyone is in favor. So I'll call the vote on that. Is everyone in favor? Okay, that carries then. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest for today's meeting? Okay, may I please have a motion to receive the meeting minutes of March 23rd, 2022? Moved by May, seconded by Jenny. Were there any questions or comments on the minutes from the last meeting? Okay, I'll call the vote. All in favor? That carries. So we have no delegations this evening, so I'll move on to the matters for consideration. The first one would be the memorandum from the town clerk regarding the 2022 municipal election. Mike.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I don't have much more prepared other than the memo for this evening's meeting. I think just as an overview that, the town has used our traditional communications channels and various other channels to get information out about the election for years now. We're quite adept at that. And I just thought it was important to come to the task force and figure out, where else can we communicate information about, being a candidate for election or just getting on the voters list. Both things are very important to us. And we just want to make sure we're doing everything we can to get this information out there. And that's, sometimes being a candidate for a municipal election, requires lots of thought. And, and so it's not just about, signing people up immediately. It's about just, if anyone has any questions, or anything, they're thinking about via the election, being a candidate, anything to do with the election, even, just want to make sure that we're in the right spots, we're going to the right people. And yeah, so I was hoping just to hear the task force thoughts about that, and anything to do with the election. I have included a couple of discussion questions in the memo, but if anything to do with the election, I would be happy to discuss this evening. So that's about it, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mike. Does the committee have any questions or comments on that? May?
Madam Chair, to Mike. Mike, when do the councillors start campaigning?
So to start campaigning, you have to register as a candidate. That's the first rule. And registrations are from May 2nd, Monday, May 2nd to Friday, August the 19th.
Thank you. Madam Chair, just a comment. I enjoy going to wherever the candidates are and listening to them. And I think we need to have more of that. I think now that we have the ward system as well, I think it would be great to have candidates within the ward where we could actually go and have a question period with them and basically see. For me personally, I like to see what they have accomplished if they are rerunning again. I think that's important to me on voting and going forward. I'd like to know. I'd like to also know what they plan for future for the town and the people of Aurora. So those are just key factors for me. Just knowing more and educating myself more on what they have done, what they plan to do. Of course, I'd like to see more diverse people with more diversity running for our town. I don't know how you go about doing that, but yeah, those are, and I do attend most of the evenings, the debates, the evenings, the question periods. I really, truly enjoy those evenings.
Jenny?
Sorry. Thank you, Madam Chair. So personally, for me, I really notice the signage that the town puts around, whether it be about the new ward system, whether it be about events going on. I feel, for me personally, I don't know if it's because I always drive past like a very common location for the signage, but that really, that helps me understand some of the goings on more so than social media and the other more common channels. Just wondering, like, to raise awareness of, or to maybe educate the public a little more on the possibilities for applying or finding out more about these roles, becoming a candidate for mayor or council, school board trustee, etc. Maybe running like a town hall, a Q&A, where they can just, learn about the role and maybe ask questions and maybe just explore the options a little bit more. So I'm not sure how you could do that, but sometimes just a town hall where they can phone in or they can join a Zoom call and they can just learn a little bit more about the process. That's just my take as well with the signage. I find the signage to be really effective in our town.
May?
Great point, Jenny. I agree with that. I think that's really important. I totally do follow social media, town social media, so that does help a lot. I also, being in town a lot, I get a lot of people calling me, and it's kind of funny in a sense because they'll ask me who should they vote for, and that's quite a personal, I think, choice. And I think people don't know enough about the councillors, and I think that's, or people that are running. So I think that sort of information maybe needs to get out somehow. I don't know if the, can do sort of a focus sector on who's running, what they've done, or why they're running, the accomplishments, that sort of thing. I think that really helps voters, only because for me, like I said to you, it's important to me, if you have been a councillor, I'd like to know how involved you've been, what you've done, and what we've achieved. Those are the kind of key factors for me, and those are the things that make a difference in my voting. So I don't know how, that if that can be achieved or not.
Just to add to the suggestion, sorry, Jenny, I see your hand. I will. So I understand, Mike, that I guess the main question is how to promote elections specifically for the BIPOC community, or communities that are like historically underrepresented when it comes to voting. I mean, I am definitely no expert when it comes to like encouraging voting in these communities, but I think as a principle, like meeting people where they're at is always like something that should be at the forefront. Some things that come to mind are like, I mean, as everyone has suggested, like social media. I think the signage, like where people are physically in the community, like making or like taking opportunities to connect in like community centers, places of worship, and going to the places where people like congregate, which might be hard within like the COVID context, but even like community, like virtual community settings as well. And just like as, I mean, not necessarily as like specific candidates, but also just as a town overall, like, I mean, for like a personal example, I would just think like it might be a good idea to like go to the mosque and like make a quick announcement that like, hey guys, by the way, there's an election coming up. These are some things that you need to know. This is where you can go for more information. I think just having like an easy way for people to access that, and like a human being as well, can be easier a lot of the times, because I think like social media and like the online world is also not accessible for a lot of people, or they're not necessarily like using that kind of form of communication. So I would just say like diversifying kind of the places that you're reaching out to people and considering where people are and going there. And I would also suggest like maybe connecting with or learning from other municipalities that have like very diverse communities, and see what they've done to kind of improve their voter turnout and things like that. Jenny, did you want to go ahead?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was going to say something very similar to you, reaching out to community leaders, group leaders, who might be able to spread the word, raise awareness. So that would be to answer more your question too there, Mike, on your memo about making sure that people are maybe aware there's an election, but also question one, ensuring that there's more representation with some of the people who choose to stand for election. And then back to May's point about knowing more about the candidates and learning about who we might vote for, maybe combining that alongside with a Q&A style opportunity, where people can opt in to learn more about the process. But I'm not sure if it would be too late at that point, if you would have your representatives kind of chosen, if it would be too late to be promoting the elections at that point, if you were also introducing some of the people who are standing for election. But that was just an idea.
Thanks, Jenny. And Shivanji, I see your hand is up.
Thank you. Through you, Madam Chair. Just a thought. I think the awareness sort of needs to happen throughout the period, not necessarily just close to when we are looking for candidates for elections, or when the elections are to be, when they're close to being through the election process, especially if you're looking for candidates to participate. There are multiple different events that happen throughout the year in Aurora that we could probably leverage now, especially now that things are opening up, and we'll probably are going to start having more in-person interactions. The perfect example is your Young Street. I forgot what it's called. It happens through spring, summertime, where you have the street vendors and booths and whatnot out there.
Yeah.
It would be nice for. I'm sorry.
The street fair?
Right, that's the one. So it'd be nice for the town to have a booth and put awareness out there, so people have time to think about what's in it for them and what's in it for from a town perspective, if they fit the mold and what they need to do up until the point when they can actually start participating and contributing. So just a thought.
Thanks, Shivanshi. And just to add to that as well, I think to build off of what you were saying around like people considering what's in it for them, I think an important consideration for the town and also the candidates is to make sure that like people do feel like they benefit from engaging in voting, and that is in the form of like making sure that I guess the platforms of the candidates and the things that they're working on are addressing the needs of the communities and making sure that they're actually taking the time to learn what the needs of the communities are, because that's an important point in like building trust with communities and making sure that they do see value and they do see that like, you know, voting can have a positive impact on my community specifically and like encourage participation that way. May?
Madam Chair, I think, you know, just making me think about a lot of things. When we see members of parliament running, or they're running for you know, MPs are running, usually they go to the churches or the mosques or the synagogues to meet with the congregation. I think in this case, to maybe simplify things better is even having members of the community, of different community or different faith groups or different what have you, have a few people come into the town hall or the debate sections or the question and answer periods and have members from each of these different communities attend those events. I think that is where maybe the questions and answers can come forward. And then those folks can relay back and go back to their faith groups or communities and have discussions on, you know, what they've learned or what they've seen. I don't know how effective it would be for every council member to go to different, you know, faith groups or, like I said, and get, so maybe this would be maybe a little simplified by having them come to the events held by town.
Thank you, May. I think I agree that that would probably be more, I guess, a more efficient approach. At the same time, I'm also conscious of the fact that I think anytime that you ask people to come to you, you like risk losing a lot of people, or like if they're not already highly engaged. So I think that's just a consideration there as well. But I would also caution against like sending every counselor individually to go. Maybe it's just like a matter of efficient planning. But I do think that like meeting communities where they are at is an important thing as well. Mark?
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that point, Nora. It is important to meet the community where they are at, you know, in their environments. And it doesn't always have to be physical as well. It could be just, you know, purposeful messaging, right, in those community centers.
That's a great point, Mark. Thank you. May?
I think one point that I think, Mike, you can maybe clarify this for me, but usually at town hall, there is an evening where each councillor is behind a table, or each member running is behind a table, and you have the chance to go there and ask them all kinds of whatever questions you'd like to ask them. Does that still occur, Mike?
Through you, Madam Chair, yes, it does. The library runs an event at, it's in the council chambers, I think, every year. I believe they've shown willingness to do it again this year. It, of course, is different this year with the awards. I'm not exactly certain how they're going to set it up, but I do believe the event will take place.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions or comments from the committee? Okay, so if there aren't any further comments, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, no opposition, so that carries. Oh, Mike.
Sorry, Madam Chair, if I could, I just want to thank everyone for their the discussion tonight. That's fantastic, and it we'll review with my team and we'll act on some of these on what we can do to get the word out with what we were talking about in the memo, what we were discussing tonight. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Mike. May, I'm not sure if you had a comment or okay. So I don't know if this fits under informational items or the current section of our agenda, but I guess now would be the time to put in our agenda addition. Is that right, Mike?
Excuse me, to you, Madam Chair. Yes, I would suggest that any discussion regarding both points could be under the same heading. I will include it in the minutes as sort of a Canada Day / multicultural festival item. And then just a motion to receive at the end would be perfect.
Okay. All right, so I guess May kind of gave us an introduction beforehand to the topic. Did anyone have any questions or comments that they wanted to add? Jenny?
So I guess for me, I would just maybe look to have some more clarification around the funding or the expectation for the parade afloat. What that might look like, what you're envisaging, or maybe, whether this funding is going to be adequate for both days with your ideas.
May?
Madam Chair. There is funding, and I think I will have Councillor Kim maybe reach out to the group and discuss this. I have done floats before for Canada Day, so it's not a whole lot. It's just a little bit of decorating, and if the town does support us, as Shelley had suggested, with a steel band of sorts, they do have funding. Am I right, Mark? She said there was funding for a music event, a music band, or anything that's basically we could add to our float. So we have that, and the only thing we really have to concentrate on is having T-shirts made and some items to decorate a float. But I will have Councillor Kim discuss the lump sum.
Okay. I guess on my end, I think oh, I lost my point. Okay, maybe I'll give somebody a chance to add in, and I'll think of what I was going to say. Okay, I think what I was going to say was along the lines of, I think that like participating in like the festivals and like the multicultural aspect of things is a good idea, and it's important. Personally, I'm not keen on really celebrating Canada Day just because the way that it celebrates Confederation and the colonial history and present of our country and the impact that's had on Indigenous communities. So I would prefer to focus on the Multicultural Day Festival activities. And I think if there's any way that we can contribute to that. And like, I think you were talking about the menu specifically and the foods that are going to be incorporated, but if there's, anything that we can do to support that event, if you want to share that with us offline, then I think that would be great.
Mark, I think you had your hand up.
I was just going to make a comment that, you know, obviously we're gonna wait for Councillor Kim's comments on this, but I had done some research on performers for the event, regardless of whether we go with the Multicultural Day or the Canada Day aspect of it. And I did put that information in Councillor Kim's head today.
Are there any further comments or questions? Jenny?
I'm just wondering whether for the Canada Day idea, I do agree with Nor, that's my personal sentiment, but if it would be more conducive to contribute towards more of a community float idea rather than having one specifically for the task force. That was just a wondering. And then for the Multicultural Day in the fall, I think, I just wanted to clarify, Mayor, are we thinking just contributing on with the food, or was there, and obviously we'll be representing our task force, hopefully in person, but was there another aspect to that?
Madam Chair, too, Jenny. The whole purpose of for all of these events, Jenny, is for us to get out there and for people to know that this task force exists. And so we can get into the community, and therefore they can, if there's any information, if there's anything they'd like to see us do, I think that is why Councillor Kim and Shelley thought this would be a great way for us to introduce ourselves into the community. And my other question, well, I have a question for you, Jenny, is when you say a float, you mentioned a, what sort of float were you thinking of?
I was thinking more one where we, work with other members of the town, like rather than just, the 5, 6, 7 of us on a float, we combine it with the town. Am I right in thinking, is that what you were thinking, or were you thinking like a standalone float for us?
No, absolutely not. There was, a lot of discussion to be had here, but we could even get a school involved in it, which we've done before, and put some ideas and come together, as a task force. Let's talk about maybe a multicultural float, for instance, which I've done before, and very proudly do kids come out with their costumes or their clothing from their heritage, from their backgrounds, and wearing it very proudly. So that's basically what I was looking at, just as a task force being involved with the community, but doing something. I think, like I said, there has to be a lot of discussion around this. And again, it doesn't have to happen. We can concentrate more on the multicultural event, but this is, again, a great way for us to get involved with the community.
Are there any other comments or questions? Okay. So Mike, I think you said you need to put a motion to put the item on the floor.
Yeah, just a mover and seconder for a motion to receive, Madam Chair.
Okay. Can I have a mover and a seconder to have a motion to receive the item that we just discussed? Moved by Mark and seconded by Jenny. Thank you. And if there are no further comments, I'll call the vote. All in favor? Okay, no opposed, so that carries. Sorry, May, did you have a question, or I see your hand is okay?
It just keeps doing that. I'm sorry. I don't know why.
Okay. No worries.
That's because I have a big
Um,
mouth. So
It's the wonderful technical issues that we all have to suffer through. Okay, so we have no informational items this evening, so may I have a motion to adjourn? Moved by May, seconded by Shivanji. All in favor? No opposed, so that carries. So I think that is the end of our meeting for today. Thank you everyone for joining.
thank you.